Welcome back to my channel. My name is Audrey. I don't think I ever really introduced myself in vlogs or my videos, but that's my name. And for today's video, I thought it would be fun to just kind of go over all things like booktube, book talk, especially if you're new here. So I recently just started on BookTube. I've been on Book Talk for a little bit, and I've been on Bookstagram for a little bit. I haven't really ever been too consistent. I thought, as a fellow newbie myself, kind of a newbie, I would just talk about things that I have learned as far as being on TikTok and Instagram and now BookTube. So let's get into it. I don't have a specific order that I'm going into it. I'm just gonna go as I think. I have some books laid out in front of me to kind of get my mind a going. So I think I'm gonna start off with books that really got me back into reading, and I would say these books here. I would recommend A Court of Thorns and Roses. This is also romance. I would say this is more heavy in romance than it is fantasy. There is fantasy elements in here, so if you like romance, this would also be good for you too, especially if you want to dabble. Like if you're a romance girl, you want to dabble in some fantasy, or you're a fantasy person, you want to dabble in some romance. This is a good romance fantasy. This is a good recommendation. The world building is not insane. It doesn't take a whole pages to really get into the world building. It kind of just throws you in there, and it even comes with like a little map. So I would say at first it is kind of a little bit hard because they're telling you about these places, and so I had to find myself going back and forth between the map. But other than that, it was generally pretty easy to follow. It wasn't too crazy, if that makes sense. It was super easy to follow. This is a 400-page book too, so keep that in mind as well. This is a bigger book, but reading this will help you start reading bigger books, like if that's one of your goals. So one of my goals was to start reading bigger books, and I did. This is 800 pages. This is the last book in the series, and I finished it. I do think I want to do a reread soon so I can actually annotate it. I might get different. This might be a book where I get multiple copies and then annotate one of them. So reading series can help you start to read bigger books. So I think this is a good pick if you want to start with fantasy. If you are into horror, I recommend this. This was very, I don't even think I gave this a rating. To deal with cannibalism, and it's like a dystopian society too. One thing about me is I love dystopian books that they get me. I don't know what it is. I just love like other worlds or stuff like that. So I think this would be a good for like horror thriller, because it was pretty, like the ending got me. The ending had my jaw to the floor. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, the whole controversy or whatever, or the reason why people hate her. We're not doing that in this video. So if you're a hater, you're a hater. I personally have only read a couple books by her, and I'm gonna keep it that way because I feel like I personally outgrew her stuff. But I feel like she has really good stuff to get you into reading. Miss Colleen Hoover. You knew where I was going with this one. You knew it. Miss Colleen Hoover. I recommend Ugly Love because this book, when I wanted to start reading again, I was talking to my friend and she invited me to this book group. And this was the first book that we picked in the book group. I have not put books down since I've read this book. So I started reading this, and then I read It Starts With Us, and then I read It Ends With Us. We're not going into it. But this book is really good. I've heard like there's some other good books by her that I might start reading her some of those again because I didn't get a chance to read those. But I just think quick short books will get you back into reading, and then eventually you can pick up the bigger books, the 800-page books, with ease. This reminds me of Get Out. So if you like the movie Get Out, you will love When No One Is Watching. This book I think is like 300. Yeah, it's almost 400 pages. But again, it's pretty small. It is a thriller, so thrillers are fast-paced. I recommend thrillers if you're trying to get back into reading because sometimes you just need that fast-paced energy to get you going. So I definitely recommend this book. This was a good book to read that kind of got me back into it. Going back on something I said earlier about annotating, I just want to say annotating is completely up to you. This book here is a romance, so there's no guide to annotating a romance book. It's however you want to annotate it. For me personally, what I do is I keep the stickies here with the colors, and then I write what the colors mean. Books that are dual point of view when annotating, for me at least, I like to have them coordinated to the character. So dual point of view would be two characters. So sometimes a lot of romances do that where they'll go with the female main character and the male main character who are obviously going to end up together. You see both of their points of view and you see them falling in love and you see like his thoughts and their thoughts, which is, I love that in a romance. A lot of times when I'm picking up a romance, I want it to be dual point of view. I want both viewpoints. So for annotating, you can really do it however you want to. Like this page here, I just kind of underlined. But if you go here, I tabbed it, I underlined and highlighted. I wrote some words here. So annotating is kind of however you want to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. For this book here, The Midnight Library, this is advertised as like a fantasy. It didn't really give me fantasy vibes, but I highlighted here. I only used 2 colors. And again, I stuck the stickies right here so you could, well, so I could see what they mean. And I think for here, I did a little bit more of a simple annotation where I was literally just underlining, highlighting, and tabbing. Sometimes I just underline and I don't even tab it. Like I just started, I think I am gonna end up tabbing it eventually. I switched my bookmark out of this book so that I have the tabs if I want them. But I just started underlining. Like I just started and I'm 30 pages into this book and I decided that I needed to underline that quote. So I may just keep this little bookmark here, go with my pen and underline stuff. I may tab it. There's no right or wrong way to annotate. So you may see people annotating on TikTok, YouTube, and stuff like that. You're like, whoa, well, like, I'm doing it wrong. No, they're your books. They're on your shelves. You're reading it. You're annotating it. Make it however you want to get into series, because I think one of the things that confused me too is people saying, oh, well, this is a standalone, but it's part of a series. So, The Hunger Games. This is also a good book to get you into reading too. They're like 400 pages each, and there's not a lot of world building as well. So this is good to get into like fantasy dystopian worlds. Those are really good if you want to get into this like fantasy sci-fi. Dystopian books are really good because there's not a lot of world building. They kind of just throw you in here and they tell you, hey, this is basically like the future and everything has been destroyed. These are good books to get you into reading, but this is a series. So with Hunger Games, you have to read The Hunger Games, then Catching Fire, and then Mockingjay. You have to read in this order. You cannot read Mockingjay, then The Hunger Games, then Catching Fire. You're not going to understand what happens. So this is not a standalone series. This is, you have to read 1, 2, 3. You have to, or you're not going to understand. These are thick, I know. These are standalones. You can start with Things We Left Behind and then read Things We Never Got Over. I don't recommend doing that simply because I like to read stuff in order. I do. But you could. And the reason why you could is because, say you pick this book first. You read this book first. And you're like, oh, I really do like it. I want to read the rest of it. That's fine. The reason why you can read these books alone is because they are different characters from different character points of view. So this is Lena and Nash, whereas this is Salome and Lucien. And there are little recaps, like in Things We Left Behind, they talk about how things happen in here. So, I mean, it would be kind of a spoiler if you were to read this and then you went back in here and then you already know what happens to them because of the recap that happens in this book. But that's what a standalone series is it's a series, but you can read them by themselves. That I wish was told to me when I started reading and actually started getting on social media and talking about it was that reading is not a competition. So you see this book here, this is 800 pages. I've seen other people reading this within like days. You have to remember that reading is not a competition. Reading is for fun and it's for enjoyment, entertainment. The same way you would sit down and watch a movie. You wouldn't compare the fact that you watch this movie faster than someone else. So why would you compare the fact that it maybe took you a week or two to read 800 pages where someone else, it took them like a day? Okay? Everybody is so different and everyone is so unique. That's why I say again too, like when going back into like choices of books I recommend for you to start reading, you may be a romance girly, you may be a thriller girl. It's completely like, it's up to you and what you like. You may be someone who likes to annotate. You may not. You may just want your book bare, right? Just listens to audio. You may be a Kindle girly. There's no right or wrong way to do it, and I kind of wish more people got on these platforms and said there's no right or wrong way to do it. The reason why I read this book so fast is because I was going back and forth between Audible and the book. Like if I was making dinner and I'm at page 376, I'm pausing here with the bookmark and I'm picking it up on my audio, and that's the only reason why I read this book so fast. Don't let people make you think that you're not doing enough, especially with hobbies. I really wish there was more videos on TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that, just letting you know that it's okay if you read like a turtle. It's okay if you're not reading 20, 40 books a month. You also have to remember that people's lives are different as well. So for me, I have 3 kids, I work, I'm a student. Some months I have really good months. Usually I have really good months when I'm reading smaller books. I'm not gonna lie. Smaller books are quicker to read, quicker to get into. They take less brain power. Fantasies like this thick 800-page book, it takes some brain power because you want to remember what's going on because it's part of a series. And who doesn't really, you're not sure about a series, I would pause on picking up a series. I'd pick up like maybe a 200-page book and get into it. Start reading with that. And then find your reading style and see what you like. If you're finding that you like more fantasies, know that a lot of them are kind of series. Like I haven't really seen any standalone. So they can usually range between a duology, which is 2 books, or they can be maybe a trilogy, or there can be like 6, 7, 8 books in a fantasy. Sometimes even romances. This is a 4-book series. These are pretty short. I haven't started this yet, but these are like 300 pages. But this is an entire series. This is book 1. There are 4 books in here. So sometimes romances have multiple books, but I wouldn't steer clear of series, especially for romances, because a lot of times they follow different characters and that are mentioned in the other book. So it's a whole new book. So like I said, you could read it as a standalone. So for romances, maybe that might be a good way to get into series if you are afraid of getting into series. That would be a good way to do it. My room is literally going to be a mess by the end of this. Some books that I recommend, since we are still in October, we are still Halloween season, is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This was a little cute book. There is some romance in it. I should go back and highlight it. I had this on my Kindle. I bought my Kindle and then someone bought it for me. And I picked up the order after I finished it on my Kindle, and I was like, oh my gosh, now I have the book. This was super cute. This would definitely be a good book for beginners too, because there is like an element of magic. Like obviously there's witches in here, but it's not crazy world building. It takes place in like the regular, like it takes place in the UK. Like there's no there's no like there's no world building, there's no extra anything like that. It just throws you in there, lets you know that there are witches. YA books too, they're really good to get into because they're quick to the point. They throw you in here. This was a good book, You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. This book here kind of kept me on my toes a little bit. I didn't know where it was going at first. The ending still kind of trips me out. But overall, this was really a good book. I do recommend like YA type of books too, because with anything like thrillers or like even fantasies, they kind of just throw you in there. They don't give you too much to like think about. So those are good for beginners. I would say this is good for beginner sci-fi because this is a sci-fi book. This is Vicious. This is also good for like if you don't like third person. I thought I hated third person, and then I read this book and I realized that I don't really care one way or next if it's third person or first person. It's in modern day society, so there's no world building either. There's no really hard, fancy word that have to make you think. So I think those are good for when you're getting back into reading as well, because you're not having to think and you're not like, oh my god, I feel so stupid. I think that's also a way to kind of turn yourself off from reading, is you're picking up these like a thick book or something like that, and they're like really big words or like just things you just don't understand, and you're like, what? That might make you put the book down and get discouraged. So I think another good one would be By the Book. This author, she's gonna be an auto-buy author for me. This actually was a romance in third person. At first I wasn't feeling it, because I'm like, why is this romance in third person? Like, I want their actual viewpoints. I want dual POV. Like, they're so cute. I cannot wait till they get together. I still ate this book up. I finished this book in a day. I literally read it all day. I was like, no one bother me. Do not speak. Do not look in my direction. There is a lot to think about when reading, but just play around. Watch videos, get recommendations, but also maybe go read like the first page. Well, don't pick up this book because it's like a 5th book in the series, but like pick up a book at like Barnes and Noble or like your local library, because that will save you money. Read the first chapter. If you're loving it, check it out or buy it. It's really not as complicated as you think. Getting into reading, TikTok may make it seem like it. I think that's why it is hard for a lot of people on TikTok, BookTok, because it feels like a competition, and you just have to remind yourself it's not a competition. Read at your own pace. Start picking up books that you love and go from there. Thank you for watching. I have some more fun videos that I've been thinking of that will be coming up soon. I just wanted to do like a little chit chat, give you all some positive vibes, some encouragement, make some little recommendations of books that I think are good to get back into reading. So thank you for watching.